Hello everyone! Yesterday MiHoYo revealed the new limited character banners for version 2.2 on stream, and surprisingly the first one will be another rerun of Childe, and this video will be on whether I think he's worth your wishes or not. As always, if you like him for aesthetical reasons, go for it, but I focus on his combat potential here. I can already tell you that he is a good character, unlike the last Hydro character we got, and since he is an older character, I will mainly focus on his playstyle and later on his possible team compositions. If you're intrigued by the elemental skill mechanic and discover that he fits your teams quite well, you should wish, otherwise it's a skip. With that being said, let's get started. Childe's playstyle is actually quite unique. The only characters that are kind of comparable are Hu Tao and Raiden Shogun. The thing they all have in common are terrible normal attacks, and a part of their skill kit temporarily changes this fact. For example, Raiden is useless when she swings around her spear, but when she pulls out her sword, you can actually deal some damage. The same applies to Childe. If you attack with this bow, he's quite useless, but if you press the elemental skill, you switch into his sword stance and can deal some damage. Unlike the other two characters mentioned, there's actually more to this skill though, which makes a Childe's skill ceiling way higher. His elemental skill doesn't have a fixed cooldown, so you have to be actively managing this as well. The longer you stay in the sword stance, the longer the cooldown will be, which essentially means the longer he uses his swords, the longer he will be useless afterwards. So you want to manage the skill in a way that you get about 10 to 15 seconds cooldown and then bridge the gap with the rest of your team. So let me just showcase this on this Ruin Guard here. You can pretty much play anything with him, like electro reactions, pyro reactions, or even a freeze team. He's pretty versatile in this sense, but he is never the one who finishes the reactions because his application rate is quite high, so lower pyro resistance in this case. Use the usual things, then use jungling to enable pyro, and we use Childe. And we get some vaporize from Goba. And always use his elemental burst skill in his bow form. This also generates a little bit of energy, which is usually more valuable than in the sword stance, and on top of that it also bridges a little bit of the cooldown of his elemental skill, which is useful as well. Now for team compositions. Unfortunately, Childe doesn't really work as a Hydro support because other characters can't trigger the Riptide effect to apply Hydro. I think that would make for some interesting gameplay, but since this isn't the case, I think Childe's only application is as a Hydro main DPS. Obviously, you want to pair him with two supports and a healer. I think pretty much any healer works, but since most people prefer Bennett and say he's the best one, me included, let's just stick to him for simplicity's sake. As first support character, since Childe almost exclusively deals Hydro damage, I recommend an Anemo character to lower the resistances with the 4-piece Viridescent set effect. You obviously could pick Venti or Sucrose. I think the best option is Kazuha, because on top of that he also increases elemental damage. And the last slot kind of defines the composition. For example, you pick something neutral like Zhongli to lower the Hydro resistance further and have like a mono Hydro team, pretty much. Same for Albedo, he deals a little bit of geo damage on top of this, or Sarah for another attack buff. You could also go for elemental reactions and enable Vaporize with a jungling, or you could go for electro reactions with the Raiden Shogun, Fischl, or Beidou. Especially the Raiden Shogun seems pretty intriguing to me because she kind of works similar to Childe, and when Childe's elemental skill is on cooldown, you can kind of cover for it with Raiden Shogun's burst skill, and vice versa, obviously. And the last option will be a freeze comp with a cryo support to enable it, for example Kea or Rosaria. I don't recommend another Hydro character because Hydro resonance is bad and you just give up on elemental reactions. You obviously could replace Bennett as a healer with an Anemo healer to get the Anemo character in there. So you wouldn't need to pick Kazuha, and you could pick something to enable reactions and a second Hydro character, but I still think that's a little weaker because, again, Hydro Resonance isn't great. So, should you wish for Childe? Like I said in the beginning of the video, aside from having his team compositions, you also need to like his very unique gameplay. Meaning, you need to manage his elemental skill and be very active in switching through all your characters in your team constantly to make up for Childe's downtime on the elemental skill. If you like this, I think he's worth your wishes. His damage potential is actually quite high because if you trigger the Riptide effect on an enemy, it splashes damage to every enemy nearby. So if you stack a lot of enemies on a single spot and trigger Riptide on all of them, it adds up to a lot. Alright, we made it to the end. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped you decide whether you want to wish for Childe or not. Stay tuned for more videos in the future, and I will probably release a character guide on him in the next few days. Until then, have fun in Teyvat, and bye bye!